$100 million in marketing campaigns for the band to promote their new album. As shocking as this is, they even stepped in to defend the promotion and the band, which led to some undesired responses within various online communities. Nevertheless, Apple seems to still be bitter from their mistake because they got rid of the headphone jack. Number 9. Walker's weather promotion. Quick! When I say British weather, what comes to your mind first? If you answered rain, then you're probably smarter than the guys running marketing for Walker's Crisps. The story goes as follows. Some genius decided that people would have fun predicting the weather if they could win a prize for it. So Walker's Crisp decided to pay their faithful customers £10 if they correctly guessed where the rain would fall on a grid map of the UK. Of course, they weren't that stupid, as they charged everyone that cost a packet of crisps 40 pence to have a go. But as you've probably guessed, offering a 25-fold return to anyone who can guess the climate of a country with fairly predictable weather patterns, it's a great deal. Rain kept pouring during the time of the promotion, and Walker's bravely followed through with their promises at great cost. After the contest was over, Walker's Crisps had to pay £660,000 in £10 payments to cover the entire contest. But to be quite honest, you could argue that it ended up working as a marketing promotion, since it made people remember the name Walker's Crisps for years to come. They even got some free promotion in this video. Number 8. Balloon Fest of '86. For some people, the word balloon will cause them to have a flashback to the time United Way decided to release 1.5 million balloons over Cleveland and screwed up badly. The whole stunt had a neat little idea behind it. Basically, they just wanted to do a little fundraiser and grab the town's attention for a while. They built a giant box the size of one city block and had 2,500 students do the balloon filling while they waited for the crowds to gather. Once the launch started, it was one of the most beautiful things you could see. For about a few minutes. You see, nobody actually accounted for the fact that wind exists, and therein lies their downfall. Literally. The 1.5 million balloons started falling to the ground and causing massive damage. They clogged the streets, waterways, and pretty much every nook and cranny of the town. If this wasn't bad enough, the balloons were blamed for the death of 2 fishermen who were found drowned 2 days later after the balloons interrupted Coast Guard attempts to rescue them. In fact, one of the fishermen's wives sued the company for $3 million, but settled for an undisclosed amount. In the aftermath, United Way ended up paying millions to the city and the cleanup crews, not to mention settling lawsuits from various citizens who were damaged by the balloons. To think that the Persians in the 300 movie used arrows to blot out the sun. What a waste. They should have just gotten United Way to plan their attack. Number 7. Jägermeister's Pool of Death. Okay, I admit it, the title is a bit too much, but it's not that far from the truth. This again goes to show that marketers sometimes don't know the basics. In this edition, we go over chemistry. Some genius in the marketing department decided that they'll make a giant pool party for all of Jägermeister's drunken fans. Which is a good start, honestly. But then they wanted to have a lot of fog above the pool for that added effect, which, again, is quite nice. However, what was not really nice was the liquid nitrogen they used to create the fog by pouring it into the water. Now this is the bad part. The liquid nitrogen basically made an unbreathable fog above the whole area when it came into contact with the water. And the marketing team must have been shocked upon realizing that humans need air to survive. This whole event was a mess and actually left one partygoer in a coma while hospitalizing 8 others. Jägermeister never actually disclosed how much they had to cough up for this mistake, but considering they put some poor guy in a coma, we can assume that it was a lot. Just goes to show, if you want to play smoke on the water, don't go overboard with the chemicals. Number 6. The Energizer Bunny. Now, how could a cute little bunny screw up a company that much? Well, do me a favor and tell me the brand of batteries you have in your remote. Don't have a clue? That's what I thought. And that's what the marketing team at Energizer realized after it was a bit too late. While the bunny is actually a cute little mascot and is probably known amongst you young whippersnappers here, you can't really pull off that kind of marketing for something like a battery. The campaign was successful for sure, but the problem is that they actually managed to advertise their competitor in the battery field. Duracell released a report after the Energizer Bunny first aired showing that their profits had actually doubled at that time because people thought that the bunny was advertising Duracell. In fact, it worked so well that Duracell uses a bunny as their mascot now, which you may have seen. While the company didn't lose money directly, the drastic drop in sales and the money wasted on promoting your competitor is enough of a burn to make sure that they're more careful next time. Number 5. Tesco and math. Tesco is praised for being a fairly cheap place to shop in the UK, but after this marketing fail you might think that it's because they're just really bad at math. Back in 2011, Tesco decided to do a special little promotion to outdo their competitor Asda. Basically, it was the whole, we will refund you twice the difference if our competitor's item is cheaper. Tesco sadly forgot that people can count, and customers got savvy by only buying items that were on sale at Asda. So they would go to Tesco's, buy the same items on sale at Asda, and then after checking out, they'd request double the difference by referring to Asda's website. For example, one shopper spent £126 at Tesco on a shop that would have cost £81 at Asda, and claimed a £90 voucher. Therefore, they essentially paid £36 for all that shopping. You can see that doing this multiple times would save you a whole lot of money at the expense of Tesco. While this was a monetary and marketing catastrophe for Tesco, you have to give them props. They actually made a promotion that ended up being great for their customers. Number 4. Oprah and KFC. We all know that Oprah is the omnipotent master of our destinies, so when she offered people a free KFC 2-piece meal, we all jumped. So why was it such a catastrophe? Well, you can imagine that KFC was not all that pleased when people managed to print out over 10 million free food coupons from Oprah's website. During the time of the promotion, KFC gave away over 40 million worth of free food and probably paid Oprah a ridiculous amount to do the promotion for them. Needless to say, KFC will not be contacting her anytime soon. Number 3. Bananas for stereo. Now before I start, this one didn't cost a lot of money, but it was really stupid on the marketing side. It was the same old formula, savvy customer plus dumb exchange equals prize. Silo, a chain of electronics stores, decided that the dumb exchange item would be bananas, and the prize would be a stereo. Imagine their surprise when, after the whole thing settled, they ended up with 11,000 bananas in their warehouse and a lot of stereos given away for around $40. These guys ended up being nice and donated all the bananas to the local zoo, but it kinda makes you think how stoned they had to be to come up with the idea in the first place. Number 2. McDonald's Olympics. I do admit that pairing McDonald's and something that requires you to be physically fit is a bit weird, but it gets weirder fairly quickly. During the Summer Olympics of '84, McDonald's had a catchy slogan, "If the US wins, you win." They included a ticket you could scratch on every meal, and customers would win a Big Mac for gold, French fries for silver, and a Coca-Cola for a bronze medal in the event that was on the ticket. Trouble is, since the Soviets boycotted the Olympics, the US ended up with 83 gold medals, 61 silvers, and 30 bronze. Basically, McDonald's lost a huge sum of money because the Russians were too lazy to compete. It seems that Russia can screw American businesses even without the hackers. Number 1. Number fever. Riddle me this. What happens when you overestimate the power of numbers? If your answer was extreme riots and lawsuits, you probably work for Pepsi. In 1992, Pepsi had their Number Fever promotion and promised to give away 1 million pesos, the equivalent to $40,000 US, to one lucky person with the right number on their bottle cap. Trouble is, they had accidentally printed the winning number, 349, on 800,000 caps due to an oversight in the manufacturing process. Consequently, they accidentally promised to give away a total of 55 billion in today's dollars. And so, people just calmly understood the mistake and caused no trouble. Nah, I'm kidding. Thousands of Filipinos began rioting on the streets, demanding that Pepsi pay them their rightful prize, which now totaled in the millions. People even filed 689 civil suits and more than 5,200 criminal cases for fraud and deception. However, Pepsi wasn't entirely at fault. It is believed this marketing fail was caused by DG Consultors, a Mexican consulting firm that Pepsi had hired to randomly pre-select the winning numbers. They were clearly instructed not to make the number 349 a winner, but they clearly didn't get the memo. Obviously, with such a costly mistake, Pepsi couldn't afford to pay everyone what they promised, and instead settled on giving just under $2,000 to each winner. instead of the promised $40,000. Regardless, Pepsi ended up paying closer to $10 million for the whole campaign rather than their original budget of $2 million. Looking at the whole list now, a lot of these things wouldn't have happened if some people just did their job properly. Such a shame. Which mistake did you think was the worst? Or do you know of any others that rivaled them in terms of stupidity? Let me know in the comments down below, and thanks for watching.
Okay, so to kind of get an idea if y'all are paying attention or not, but this is a lot of these mistakes could have been made by just doing a little bit of marketing research. So let me just toss a few questions out there to see how much attention y'all were paying. Who can tell me which charity had to pay a lot of money because of a balloon disaster?
One World?
Who?
Was it One World or World Way or something? United Way?
United Way, you got it. Good job. Okay. Okay, how about what did Oprah decide to advertise?
KFC.
That's right, KFC chicken. And let's see, what was the #1 promotion on this video that went bad?
The Pepsi
It
one?
was Pepsi,
Yes,
yeah.
correct, absolutely. Okay, can anybody else think of any other disaster that y'all might have seen or heard of in the past? Okay. Okay.
How about Monopoly? The Monopoly game that when you like play the game of life or the Monopoly, it's Monopoly. Now with social media, people can connect and start connecting those game pieces together to claim those prizes.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know if you've heard of that, but it was harder to win because they only distribute certain pieces.
Yeah, like at Ralph's and different places. Yeah.
Yes. And now with social media, people are connecting and saying like, who has Park Place? I have this other piece. So now we'll see how it changes the game.
Oh,
moving
wow.
forward.
That's interesting, Christine. I have not heard of that. Again, people have to be really vigilant. And this is good for y'all to know because, y'all may be in the position of marketing at some point and you need to really kind of look at all the angles. I have a couple of other examples, and I will send this out like I have in the past with the videos. Let me pull it up and then I think, shoot, wait a minute, let's see. Let me see if I think I've got it on here to share it with y'all. Yeah. Okay, these are some that I thought that I had collected over the years. For instance, the Gerber is the name of the baby food maker. In French, that means vomiting. So when they tried to market it in France, it didn't go so well. Chevy Nova, and they tried to have a big market push in Mexico. Did not go well because Nova means no-go. So that was completely, a lack of research on the part of the marketers, because if they would have even realized that, who wants to buy a car that's called no-go? It's trouble enough having a car go when it's supposed to. Then there was one where Ford launched an ad that execs said every car has a high quality body, and instead the slogan read every car has a high quality corpse, and that wasn't exactly the image they were hoping for. Anyway, there's a number of them down here that in another one with Gerber, they really have issues at some point with their marketing. They had a beautiful Caucasian baby on the label and later found out that companies in Africa often put pictures of what's inside the bottle. So because a lot of people can't read. So needless to say, that didn't go over well either. So anyway, that's just a few of them, and I will send this to y'all just for your information.
Hey, Professor. One similar to the Gerber is the toothpaste brand Colgate.
And what happened with that one?
Translated into Spanish, it's like hang yourself.
Oh my goodness. I I've never heard that one. Absolutely. Again, thank you for sharing. That's like a example of the most simple type of research. That is really a big plus to be sure you have a diverse team that speaks several languages, and that people pay attention to that, because you can spend a ton of money and it's just wasted. Anybody else? Okay. All right. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to share the PowerPoint with y'all, and we're going to I have a chat here from, I haven't heard about the Mazda no, I can't, Lapita. Carla, what is that about?
It's La Puta, and puta in Spanish is.
I know.
Yeah.
Okay. Really? I bet that one didn't sell real well either. Thank you, Carlo. I hope everyone else knows too. I stopped him before he finished. So basically it means a lady of the streets. Am I right, Carlo?
Yes, I wasn't gonna say it.
No, I didn't figure you would. So anyway, that is a pretty bad one. I can tell you, I've heard of a lot of things that happen on a personal level. I knew a guy that his dad owned some mines in I think in Colombia or somewhere, and he went to Brazil, and there was a term that he used that in his country meant, and I'm blanking on what it's called, beautiful. And when he went to Brazil, apparently the translation meant streetwalker, basically. And so he told his secretary, she looked beautiful that day in what he thought was, the language, and she slapped him and quit and was highly insulted. So you really have to be careful on, on trying to use a language maybe that you don't know too well, or using advertising or anything like that. Carla, thank you for sharing that, because I had not heard that one. I'm gonna add it to my list. So, okay, anybody else? Okay, let me see here. Let me do the screen sharing one more time. Hopefully I can find it. Okay. Remember, I can't see y'all, so if you can't see it or can't hear me or anything, holler out or send a text message or something. So again, marketing research, I think, is one of the really one of the most interesting parts of marketing. I think if I wanted to get into an area besides teaching, I would want to do something like this, because it's really really interesting to figure out all the different things that can happen in a marketing research campaign, and all the different things you might miss. You have to be really, really careful. So as you're looking at the marketing research process, first you need to recognize that there's a problem. And once you have to figure out what is the problem and how can it be fixed. If any of you watch Shark Tank, oftentimes they'll say, well, it's kind of a cute little widget, but it doesn't solve any problem. And typically they won't invest in it because that's, kind of like a fad, and it usually doesn't go anywhere. But if it solves a problem, you're more likely to get interest in it. So once you figure out there's a problem, then you look at the 4 types of objectives. You've got the exploratory part that needs to determine the cause of the problem. For instance, we have a problem. We're not getting as many people into the ER as we used to. So what's the cause of the problem? Could it be that our staff is not efficient, our staff is rude? Could it be that we don't have enough doctors and the wait time is horrendous? Could it be a change in the demographics around the ER? Maybe a urgent care has moved in a block away, or maybe the community has left the area and it's mostly industrial now, so you're not really in the close to a big target group. So what is the, what is the problem? What's the cause of it? And then you need to describe it, what are the new issues? What are the, what could be some of the causes for it? Then you've got, you're going to test hypothesis. You can say, well, I think it's because of this, whatever it is. I think it's because we don't have, our staff aren't trained well. So you test that hypothesis and see if you have better trained staff, see if you have more supervision down there to see how they're treating clients, test it out and see if that could be the reason. And then you do kind of do a prediction. You forecast the demand for the service. Do people really need this in this area? You can design, after you've tested, you can design and look for primary data. And remember in the movie that or in the video, they talked about primary data. Can anybody remember? I can't see you, but maybe you can holler out, what is primary data as opposed to secondary? Anybody remember?
Asking existing customers.
That's right. You're absolutely right. The primary data is you go out there and you get that information yourself. And it can be from existing customers. It can be from, wherever you need to get it, but you are collecting the data. Good point. Whereas secondary data is you're using somebody's data that's already been collected. This would be like the Census Bureau has this tremendous database because, they do every year they take every 10 years, they do the population census and they ask so many questions, that things you think, why do they need to know this? But they ask every kind of question you can imagine. It's really, really long. And they take all that data and they aggregate it into all these different areas. And that data is available for researchers to use. And typically it's free if you know how to get into it and use it. But the tools to use it are pretty difficult. It's not user friendly. When I was running a grant for the University of Houston, they sent me to Washington, D.C. for a week to learn how to use the databases from the Census Bureau. That was like many, many years ago, so it's all changed tremendously, I'm sure. But it wasn't intuitive. It didn't just pop up there and they say, what would you like? It didn't have a lot of GUI pages, where you could go in and type in, I want to know how many people were admitted to hospitals on drug overdose in the downtown LA area, and they have that information maybe, but it's difficult to get to. There's another source for that also. It's called, I think it's called SpeedTrack. I forgot the exact name of it, but it's a database that gets their information from all the hospitals all over California. And I actually had him speak to the man that sells it. I actually had him speak to my graduate class a number of years back. And you could tell him that you'd like to know on December 31st, in certain zip codes or certain areas like downtown LA, how many people were stabbed. And it would give you in a millisecond the numbers to people, the number that were fatal, the number that went into the different hospitals in that area, the whole works. So all of that, though, that is secondary data. You didn't collect it. You're using what someone else gave you you're using what someone else collected. So clearly, that type of data collection, the secondary, is usually less expensive. Data collection is more expensive, more timely when you do it yourself, and much more extensive than doing it through secondary databases. Okay, then you analyze it. So there's lots of ways of getting your information as far as the primary and secondary data. Now this just goes into a little more detail. I'm gonna skip right through this because I already went through this with you, but as you look at the PowerPoint that you have that's on the website, you'll see that all this information is there. Okay, and another just a quick overview of primary data. Remember, it's what you collect. Can anybody tell me the difference, or do you remember from your basic statistics class, can you tell me the difference between qualitative and quantitative data? Anybody?
Is quantitative more to do with like numbers, and qualitative
qualitative is to do with like more words or like, I don't know how to explain it.
You're right. You're right. Absolutely correct. Right on. Qualitative is, it's a little bit different. I didn't have a lot of qualitative when I was in Texas A&M because they were a number-based department that I was in. But now things have come around and people are using more qualitative. Qualitative, you go out and you interview people, you observe people, it's personal observations, it's personal interviews, it's things that are not a yes or no. It's not quantitative, which means using numbers. A lot of people in today's world use what they call mixed research methods. And what mixed research methods is you might do like a quantitative survey. And this would be a Likert type scale, a yes or no, something that I can throw into a program like SPSS, which is Statistical Packages for Social Sciences. You feed those numbers in, and then it will tell you all kinds of, it'll give you all kinds of results. You can get mean, median, mode, like, you can always do with any set of numbers. You can run t-tests, you can run MANOVAs, ANOVAs, all the different ways to come out with numerical, statistical predictions, basically. But of course, nothing is absolute. You can look at the numbers, and the numbers can tell you, what statistically will happen, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it will happen. And a researcher who doesn't have a lot of ethics can actually make any set of numbers say kind of what they want to, just by the way you run the numbers and the way you describe it. So, and your database, what you're using for your information. Whenever I see any kind of a report in the newspaper that says, 80% of the people said whatever, blah, blah, I have to wonder to myself, who was their sample set? Because if I wanted something to show something that agreed with me, I could just unethically, a researcher could choose the people they know would agree with them. So a lot of times if you see statistics, they're sensationalized for you. And maybe you need to look further into it and say, well, who actually did they poll? Was it random? Because if it wasn't random, then it's really not worth thinking about. Okay, so, and then secondary data, again, is using data that's already out there, big data sets that people have spent millions of dollars to create. There are companies that use the Census Bureau data sets and package them for specific groups, like they package them for public school systems, or they package them for researchers in social sciences, or whatever it happens to be. They've gone out and they've done the hard work. They've used secondary data, but they put it in a format that allows you to get to it easily. Now, a lot of companies, big companies, would rather purchase those than to pay for their people to do all that time that it would take to get that information. We good so far? Any questions? Okay, this is just showing different approaches, and this is in your book, to collecting the two types of data sources. Again, remember, primary data is what you do yourself, and it can be quantitative or qualitative. Oh, I didn't finish with mixed research. Mixed research is that you may send out a poll, but then in the poll, you may also ask them for a short answer. And that short answer then would turn it into, you can't quantify that, so that would turn into more a mixed research, because you would have to analyze that short answer, unless you have typical answers that you quantify somehow. But typically, it's when anything that the researcher has to look at and have an opinion on, even though it's supposed to be totally unbiased, then that becomes qualitative. I can give you an example. When I was working for the University of Houston, I was the statistical team member or faculty member for the dissertations that were in the Department of Leadership. So whoever I had to analyze their chapter 3, which is when they, chapter 3 and 4, which is when they do their statistics and analyze them. And so I had to be sure that what they were doing was accurate and ethical. And when a qualitative paper would come in, a dissertation, sometimes it would be 800 pages long. Every time I saw qualitative, I thought, oh, because it was so much more reading. And you have to be so careful that the researchers weren't biased, because as you read all these interviews and what they do is they may interview like 10 people, and then they look for a common thread, like what are all 10 of those people saying? And so then by using that, they hypothesize that that is the way it would be in a lot of cases, because of the 10 that they did, all 10 used had this particular statement concerning whatever question you asked. Used to, you had to do that by hand. You had to go through all your interviews and look for common threads, is what they called it. In today's world, there's a lot of software like NVivo and a few other ones. I was trained in NVivo, so that's the one I can think of right off the bat. But that one goes, you upload all the interviews that you have into NVivo, and then NVivo, the computer goes through and looks for things that are common to all the different interviews or whatever type of data you've uploaded, qualitative data. So it's very different than having to do it by hand, much faster. But like any other software, just like APAs that does your citations and stuff for you, it's not perfect because it's a computer. But it does tend to maybe eliminate a little bit more of the bias. Anyway, so as you look at it, it shows you different types of primary data and different types of secondary data. And in the research world, you know, both are very acceptable. Qualitative and quantitative are very acceptable. It just depends on who you're working for and what they're looking for. Okay, these are just some places that you can get observational data. Like for instance, Nielsen ratings. They used to have this little box many years ago that sat on top of your TV. And what it did was it watched, or it kept a record of what you were watching on TV. And, you know, like it rated the shows by how many people were watching it. Also, I think tied in ads, and, you know, because that's how they figured out how much to charge for ads and where the ads were to be most likely for your target group, because you did a survey showing, you know, the people in your house and all that information. So that was one way that Nielsen used to do it. I'm not sure how they do it now. Qualitative data can also be collected by watching people with cameras. It's kind of like observational when you're self doing it, but you can do it they can do it with cameras and then make it available. Mystery shoppers, medical mystery shoppers, those are people, you know, everybody knows what a mystery shopper is. They're paid to go in and pretend to be a customer or a client or a patient or whatever, and let you know how the people are treating them, let you know what the service is like, and those kind of things. Focus groups they can be asynchronous, which they don't have to all meet at the same time, or you can be synchronous, where you meet with asynchronous, you meet with them individually, they do things individually. Synchronous is when everybody's together. A lot of times, I guess they may still do it, not during the pandemic, but they would have focus groups for a lot of stuff. You might be walking down the mall and they'd say, how would you like free dinner on us? And, oh yeah, I'd love to have free dinner. And what they would do, they'd say, well, you have to go watch this TV commercial for 15 minutes and then be in a focus group afterwards to tell us what your reactions to the commercial. So that's one example of how focus groups are used, but they're used in a whole lot of different ways, but that's one that maybe you've even participated in at some point. Then you have personal interviews, and then now the latest thing is that researchers use social media. They go and see what's going on out there in Twitter and all the different social media platforms to see what opinions are, what's the current opinion. Again, that's examples of qualitative data, because it's the researcher looking at things that are not quantified. Okay, just another chart showing you the different types of tools for quantitative and qualitative. And experimental is when you can manipulate the factors, like you might have set up two groups, one gets a placebo, one doesn't. And so you've kind of manipulated the situation. And by doing that, you can maybe figure out the cause or whether something works or doesn't work. Survey research, that, there's used to, you got a lot of stuff by mail, people did, not so much anymore, I don't think. But there was a study done that showed that if a survey is mailed to someone, and if you give them anything in that original survey they mailed to you, even a red or copper shiny penny, that people are more likely to complete it, because there's something in the person that thinks that if they keep whatever it is that you gave them, they feel compelled to complete the survey. Where if you just sent the survey, they might just toss it straight into the trash. But if there's money in it, they'll take time to peel it off and maybe even do the survey. The likelihood of getting the survey done was statistically higher if you included some sort of reward. There's a lot of online surveys now. I'm sure that y'all been hit up. Well, y'all do them every year at the end of the semester. Every semester, y'all go online to rate the teachers and your instructors and, various other things. I've seen surveys go popping out asking you, the students what they thought of the student center, what they thought of activities on campus. So all the time, without even realizing it, y'all are completing online surveys. Telephone surveys, not so much anymore. Used to, when you had landlines, there were a lot of, you got surveys all the time by phone. But now they do a lot. You get a lot of spam like that. But typically, they're not surveys. They're more like, asking you to buy extended car warranty or something like that. Okay, so as you are looking at designing your sample, the main thing you got to remember that your sample needs to be in something that, needs to be your target group. If your population doesn't have anything to do with the product that you're trying to do research on, then it's not going to really give you the data that you're looking for. For instance, if you're thinking of opening up a pediatric clinic, it's unlikely you would want to use a sample set of people over 60. There may be people that have children that age, but they would be your outliers. And if you remember from statistics, your outliers are the ones that aren't the typical graph. If you put all your answers onto a graph and it shows all the dots, I hope y'all remember this, it shows all the dots following like a line, like they're not straight on the line, but they'll be all along the line. So the range will be typically within, let's say, between whatever it happens to, let's say between 5 and 10. But then you may have somebody that's way up at the top all by themselves out there. Maybe they're a 1. And that's called an outlier. That's the person that actually is part of your sample, is part of your target group, but is certainly not typical of your target group. And an example of that, I can give you an example of that. Years ago, they made 2-door SUVs. There was 2-door Bronco, a 2-door Tahoe, a 2-door Jimmy. They had a lot of 2-doors. So now, in about 1999, the last of the 2-door Tahoes rolled out. Now they have brought back the Bronco, I know that, but it took many years. But the reason, when I did some research on it, the reason that they quit selling the 2-doors, they look great, and they, they were really, really, I think it looked really great. I still have one, in fact, in Texas. But the reason they quit was because they were so expensive, because they had all the upgrades that you would get in the 4-door, like the leather seats and the great stereos, the big tires, all the things that you would get in the 4-door. So they were very expensive. But they discovered that the people who wanted to buy a big vehicle like that did not typically want a 2-door. And the people who wanted the 2-door were the younger generation that, wanted to take it out, mud dog it, and whatever else you do with, 4-wheel drive vehicles, and they couldn't afford them. So I had one. I wasn't in that group. I was, I was not like a teenager in the 20s. So I was what would be considered an outlier. I was not the person they would typically market to, but I loved that car. But the typical market was a whole lot different demographic. So you go to look for what your target group is, the typical demographic that would be using whatever it is that you are peddling. So when you're looking at the data collection, the sample is the collection of data from a portion of your target population. Now, you should remember this, you might see it on your test. The census is all members of that population. The census is everybody that falls into that population. But the sample is the ones that you're actually collecting the data from, that you pulled a random selection from the census that you've pulled for your research. So again, the population is the description of all the people or elements of interest to you, the researcher. Now the sampling frame, that means how are you going to decide which ones to use? How are you going to decide on the random selection? When I was in school, they used to tell us, get a phone book and count every 10th person, or count every other page, every 5th person. Anything that would be randomized. In today's world, I don't know the last time that I've seen a phone book, but you can get a random selection, by having a computer generate it for you, that you want a random selection of 100 people from this population or this census or population of 5,000 or whatever it happens to be. And then the computer randomly selects them for you. So as you go on through that, you can also do it by, well, that's kind of the example of it. And then you choose how you're going to sample them. And some of the ways to sample them is what I just told you, by computer. There's other ways to do it. You can say every 10th person or whatever it happens to be. Okay, you want to determine how many people that you're going to use in your sample size, and then tell in your data, in your information, and when you're writing it up, tell what sampling plan you use. You have to tell everything. When you're doing any kind of research, don't leave it for anybody to wonder how you did it, because that makes them think you may have done something you don't want them to know. So if you're doing a research project, a lot of you will be doing a research project as a senior. And if not, if you go to graduate school, you certainly will be doing like a thesis. Tell everything. Anything that even something you think isn't important, you need to write it down and put it in there. Because if anything's left out, it makes it look like, that you're trying to hide something. Okay, under this one of my favorite ones is the KISS principle. Keep it simple. When you're designing a questionnaire, you want to be sure that you keep it simple, because if you make it too difficult to understand, people will either not put the correct answers down, or they'll just say this is too much trouble and trash it. I can't tell you how many times I've been sent surveys and they say, oh, will you give us 3 minutes of your time? I think, okay, a couple of questions, and then they push you, and before you know it, you're answering hundreds of questions, and I just always back out of it. Keep it simple. Ask simple questions. Keep it short. Do not try to find out everything in one survey. Okay, we already talked about qualitative and quantitative, and that kind of sums it up. So let me get out of this sharing. I know that was a lot of information, and I did follow pretty closely to the PowerPoint, although I try to add something in that'll help you remember, like being an outlier because I drive a 2-door truck, those kind of things, which is what I try to do because some of this information I know is a little bit difficult, especially when we shoot through it in an hour to absorb. So I always want to put something in there that would help you remember about it. Do I have any questions so far? Are we good? It should be kind of a review back to your basic statistics class that you took. I love statistics. I have a minor in that. And I thought it was such a fun thing to figure out all those different numbers and predict things and, you know, figure out how those numbers work together. But maybe I'm kind of geeky. I don't know. So anyway, any questions on anything? Okay, remember that you've got your navigate to, and I moved the due date to Sunday. And you've got Thursday and Tuesday and Thursday of next week to work with your groups. I'm trying to give you time that I know everybody's available because all of y'all are extremely busy. So what I'm going to do now, if I don't have any questions, what I'm going to do now, let me be sure I've got everybody that's here. I don't have Kelly Lee. Are you here, Kelly? No. Okay. And how about Adrian Lopez? Okay. Everybody else is here then. Okay. I'm going to open up the, y'all got about 12 minutes. So I'm going to open up the chat room and I'll just let y'all self-select into it. And that way that'll be much quicker. If it doesn't sell, if you're not able to do it, you're not seeing it for some reason, let me know and I will send you into it. So I'm going to open the break rooms up now. I will send you the videos that I showed you because I know that one of them will help you with this chapter and the other one is just kind of interesting. And just out of fun, I'll send you that blooper sheet that I have. Okay. Choose the group. Remember, the breakout room is the group that you are a member of. I think we have 5 groups, so. Okay. If y'all don't have anything to discuss or you don't want to meet, you're free to go.
I'm not able to get into mine.
Okay, which one are you and who is this?
This is Rachel, the
Okay.
Hill, number 5.
Number 5? Okay. There you go.
Thank you.
Uh-huh. Fati, are you here?
Yes, but no
You're not
one's
able.
name is looking familiar. I'm in group 3, I believe, but I don't see anyone in that group.
Okay, let me see. Maybe they took off. Group 3. Yeah, that you're in that group. Okay, so you went in there and just came back out?
Well, I don't see, I'm looking at it from my screen and there's nobody in group 3.
You're right. There's not. I guess
Yeah.
they decided to leave. Sorry.
My whole group, there's no one in the.
I see that. It's completely empty.
Oh,
Huh.
wow.
That's strange. I don't think I've ever had that happen.
Yeah, because I'm like, I don't see any familiar names either.
Huh. Because it should be, everybody was here that's in that group today, I think. Let's see. Y'all have Twitter. Yeah, everybody was, well, no, Kelly's not here. So, but everybody else was here. I don't know. Looks like they've at least discussed it besides disappearing.
I know. Yeah.
Well, let me know if you have any trouble with meeting with the groups or anything, okay?
Okay. Thank you.
All right, have a good day.
You too.